When something's missing in our lives, we have a hard time finding the peace that God wanted us to have in this world. So when we have missing pieces in our lives, that peace from God is oftentimes something that is fleeting. Thanks for joining us on this journey as we talk about the missing pieces of life. Today we're really focusing on this concept of a missing perspective. And perspective is so important in all that we do. Our perspective determines how we see this world and what we see in this world. And if what we see in this world impacts then, of course, how we live in this world. And you can see that in how different people live in this world from different perspectives. A lot of times when we see a young child and we want to communicate with them, we try and get on their level. We get down on their levels. I can remember several times getting down on my knees so I can look at a child eye to eye and so that I can see into their eyes and show that I'm on their level and talking and communicating directly with them. Oftentimes that same child models my behavior and I get down on my knees and then they get on their knee because that's what I'm doing. And it's hard to then get down low enough to see what they're seeing. But if they will stand and let me get down at their eye level, I can look in their eyes, and for some reason it helps me communicate with them and to see things like they see it. In a very real sense, what God did was to come to this earth so He could make sure we knew that He saw from our perspective. And so He came down and He lived on this earth and He knelt down and humbled Himself and died on the cross so that we could be raised up and see more like He sees. And that's exactly what our text is trying to tell us today, is we need to see a perspective that's different than oftentimes we see in this world. We need to see a larger, a bigger, a higher perspective. In our text, in Colossians, we looked at Colossians 3, verses 1 through 17. It's great to revisit that. I want to just look briefly at the first two verses where Paul writes, "Since then you have been raised with Christ, set your hearts on things above." As believers, as fellow Christians, we've been raised up because of what Christ did. We put to death the old way and buried it and came out of that grave in the waters of baptism to live a different life and to have a different perspective. And since we have that different perspective that Christ made possible by coming to this earth, we need to raise up our eyes and set our hearts on things above. I discovered what my heart wants is oftentimes what I think about. And so set our hearts on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. In other words, we have a different perspective. We look at this world and we think in different ways. Our perspective has grown. In a very real sense, it has zoomed out. In my office, I have a little book that my 2-year-old granddaughter loves to read. It's called Zoom. You probably would like this book as well because there are no words, only pictures. And the first picture in the book is kind of an abstract. You really can't tell what you're looking at. But as you zoom away, each picture, each page goes into a bigger image. And so you're looking at a rooster, which is being watched by children on a farm, which as you zoom out, you find out that farm is just a toy that's on a magazine that a boy is looking at while he's on a cruise on an ocean that is, as you keep zooming out, is on a picture on a bus, which is in a town, which is on a TV, which is being watched by a cowboy in Arizona, which is on a stamp that is being delivered to an island by an airplane. And the last picture in the book is all the way zoomed out, where all you see is a little dot, which is the earth. It's fun to look at the picture because you never know what the next page holds. And our lives are much like that. So many times we're focused on something that's very abstract in the moment. And we think we understand it as we take one step back and another step back and another step back. But really it's hard for us to understand it until we look at it from above. When I get down on my knees and look in the eyes of a child, They can see in my eyes, and I can see reflected in their lives what they're seeing and what they're doing. And when God came to this earth in Jesus Christ, we were able to see through his eyes what he sees in this world, a reflection of how we should live and how we should act. Now Christ has been raised and is at the right hand of God. And hopefully as believers, we're learning to see through his eyes what's reflected from that heavenly perspective. That we are zoomed out and we don't just see the abstract of the moment or think we understand everything around this picture, only to find in the next step it's a bigger picture and a bigger picture. We have a perspective that's different. And when we look through Christ's eyes, we see a reflection of this world that like we should see it, a heavenly perspective in this earthly world because we've been raised up. So many times what we're missing in life is simply perspective. Our perspective, how we see the world, impacts how we live in this world. And so it's important that we learn how to have the perspective God wants. God has changed us. He's changed our perspective. He sent Jesus into our lives, and it impacts my life at the moment. I hope you'll spend some time by yourself or with those around you or your small group or your family today or sometime this week, thinking about the different ways God's perspective, a heavenly perspective, impacts our lives today. Attached to this YouTube video is a discussion guide. Maybe you can work through that and dig a little deeper into the impact of a missing perspective. Because how we see this world impacts how we live in this world. And we need to see things the way God sees them. Our second text is out of 2 Corinthians 4:16 through 18. And it tells us why it's so important to get this heavenly perspective on today and tomorrow. Paul writes, "Therefore we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal." I hope that perspective will come into your life as we learn to look and to see this world as reflected through the eyes of Jesus. God bless you on your journey.